In 2008, the History Channel came out with a UFO file special on alien engineering, considering the hypothetical scenario of the U.S. military having captured an extraterrestrial spacecraft and begun the process of reverse engineering the technology. Several scientists and futurists appeared as guests on the show to offer their thoughts and ideas as to what kinds of things we could have discovered. They talk about the possibility of warp drive technology, invisibility, teleportation, anti-gravity, etc. It was fairly interesting for me to watch. However, I was slightly disappointed, mainly because the whole time I was watching I kept thinking they could have done a better job explaining that, or they should have elaborated more on the science behind this. And so that's why I made this video. All the information herein is a compilation of 4 years of my research into witness reports of materials from UFO crash sites and my attempts as a scientist to back-engineer the technology based upon said witness reports. In the next few minutes, we're going to take the History Channel's hypothetical alien spacecraft to a place you've never dreamed of, and then find out they forgot to tell us there were more than one. We'll begin with craft number 3, which was discovered partially intact by rancher Mac Brazel on Foster Ranch in Roswell, New Mexico. This craft was made of a very special type of material, the likes of which none of the people who handled it had ever seen before. The craft looked a silvery, dull metallic gray from the outside, but from the inside the walls were completely invisible, except for the places where the craft had been damaged. The broken-off pieces were all quickly collected, and the debris, which was collected by townspeople, was confiscated from them. The entire crash and debris area was thoroughly searched, all the sand and dirt was dug up and sifted. General Ramey, the Canadian Air Force intelligence officer, then posed for some press photos with Major Jesse Marcel, the reporting Air Force intelligence officer, who was the first one on the scene of the crashed saucer. They snapped some photos of them holding pieces of balsa wood mylar and radar target, and thus the official weather balloon cover story was forwarded to the press. Meanwhile, the real material was being studied intently by top intelligence and military specialists to determine what it was and how it worked. It was strange that they found no wires, light bulbs, or anything that resembled conventional electronics of the day. Eventually, samples were shipped to Sandia National Laboratories and Los Alamos and given to scientists who were told that they were reverse engineering Japanese or Russian technology and kept under strict national security oath. The scientists performed a battery of tests on the materials and found that some of the pieces had very interesting physical and optical properties. Some exhibited room temperature superconductivity, sometimes only when current or temperature flowed in a specific direction. Others would cause light to bend backwards and obey the left-hand rule whilst inside the material. This is known as a negative index of refraction. Then there was the memory foil, which resembled tinfoil or mylar, only it was mirror smooth and would not crinkle even when you folded, creased it, or crumpled it up into a ball. It would unfold itself mirror smooth again. Even though the foil was just 16 atoms thick, it was almost impossible to cut, tear, puncture, or burn the seemingly flimsy material. But a material even stronger than that made up the skeleton of the craft. This proved impossible to cut through, even with a diamond-bladed saw. Samples had to be removed using high-powered lasers. Piece by piece, and over a period of many years, they slowly came towards an understanding of the complex systems involved in the operation and underlying functions of the craft. Even though today, in the year 2009, we are still incapable of reproducing the technology on the level of complexity exhibited by the nano-engineered systems of the alien craft. Scientists have produced metamaterials and aperiodic crystallizations in the laboratory, and their potentials are well understood, but they are still a ways off from having what it takes to build a starship, anywhere close to the Roswell craft. You are the generation that needs to change that. So the skeleton of the craft is shaped something like this. The cockpit is located on the top, while the heavily reinforced ring-shaped section makes up the lower portion of the saucer-shaped craft. On the bottom of the craft was a chamber which held a sheet of memory foil with a radius of nearly a mile. This had been mostly ripped apart upon the high-speed impact and was found scattered everywhere across the ground, making up a majority of the crash debris area. This, as it turns out, helped the cover story tremendously, as most of the debris could be dismissed as mylar from a weather balloon. In reality, this was a nano-engineered reflective surface material which is believed to have functioned as a giant solar sail to collect sunlight energy. This is further supported by the optical properties of the skin of the craft, which appear designed to trap and redirect all electromagnetic waves striking its surface. The outer membrane is a film of layered photonic bandgap materials. Each layer is made up of a different type of metamaterial, which is tuned to trap a specific frequency of light while allowing higher frequencies to pass through to their respective layers. In this manner, each frequency can be separated out and redirected to the area which is needed. Visible frequencies can be directed to display on the inside walls of the craft, giving the illusion of the walls being invisible, but they can also function as super high-definition TV screens, recalling images or video captured and stored inside of quasicrystals, which function as nanoscale memory cells. The surfaces can also function as touch-activated control screens, with menus appearing as holographic surface textures. But the coolest thing about it is that it doesn't require any electricity. The entire system, including computers, memory drives, logic gates, communication devices, radar, and weapon systems, functions entirely on ambient light energy, which can be amplified up to 100,000 times if the solar collector sail is fully extended in mid-space. High-energy electromagnetic solar radiation is converted into electrical energy via highly efficient photovoltaic cells. The energy is then used to rotate a special type of fluid at high speed inside of a centrifuge, effectively storing it as rotational inertia. The structural reinforcements of the craft were so dense in this lower ring section that it was estimated about 2/3 of the skeletal structure of the entire craft was comprised of this section alone. At an estimated strength of 72 million pounds per square inch, this much material reinforcement would be able to contain several trillion tons of force. In terms of a rotating liquid centrifuge, this amounts to nearly half a terawatt of energy, enough to run the city of Boston for a week. Within the ring is a hollow torus, which, to the dismay of the scientists, was completely empty upon discovery of the craft. It wasn't until much later that they figured out this chamber had been filled with liquid helium-3, which had leaked out and boiled off shortly after impact. The inner wall of the toroidal ring is lined with a specialized type of trimetallic quasicrystal, whose lattice structure creates a superconductor for thermal energy. Woven into the fabric of this crystal lattice are systems of tunnels, slightly resembling the veins and arteries of a human vascular system. But rather than transporting oxygen with hemoglobin, this system transports thermal energy using an intravenous refrigeration cycle. It carries the heat away from the outer torus towards a fusion reactor at the center of the donut. Shaped like an oblong spheroid and surrounded by another thick casing of the skeletal material, the reactor core collects all the waste heat energy of the ship and stores it in a plasma confined within a magnetic bubble. The hydrogen plasma is compressed and heated to billions of degrees, where it fuses to create helium, an energy which can be used by the ship. The fusion reactor core provides power for the ship's main engine and also rotates as a counterbalance to stabilize it. The main propulsion system is called a space-time field disruptor, or magnetic flux field disruptor. Although modern physics has not quite caught up with the anti-gravity drive used on this ship, there are many theories. My theory goes something like this. Seeing as electric flux produces magnetic fields and mass flux produces gravitomagnetic fields, I thought that there must be something more to this mathematical relation. Many leading anti-gravity researchers are convinced that the answer lies in torsion physics. Here's how it works. While electric current produces magnetic fields, magnetic current produces torsion fields. Torsion flux, in turn, produces gravity fields, which emanate from any nested group of quarks, giving the illusion of a massive particle. If you then take these particles, which have measurable mass, and propagate them physically through space, effectively creating a mass flux, this would in turn produce gravitomagnetic fields. So it appears my original theory was backwards, with a missing step in between, this torsion field physics. This particular ship's anti-gravity drive produces uniformly propagated torsion flux by spinning superfluid helium-3 rotated inside of the large, hollow donut-shaped ring mentioned earlier. Super-strong magnetic focusing coils wrapped around this torus create exotic Cooper pairs within the rotating superfluid that behave according to the weird, non-intuitive laws of quantum mechanics. It is here, in the quantum world of pure statistical mathematics, that one can exploit the discrete anomalies of pure number theory and actually cheat gravity. But we'll go more into that in a future video. In fact, everything I've mentioned so far in this short video could probably have several PhD thesis studies done on it and still not cover everything. My goal was merely to show that the History Channel should think about contacting me the next time it wants to make a special on alien technology. They talk about invisibility and cloaking and didn't even mention metamaterials. I mean, come on. Anyways, thanks for watching. Don't forget to rate and leave a comment. Thank you.